Yeah, what's good, man? It's Dan the Fan. Just got done watching UFC 251. It's about 7 in the morning here in the UK. Another good event, really enjoyed it. Obviously, it's Fight Island, so it's a historic moment. Yeah, I'm pretty tired, having just woken up to watch the full pay per view card. Got a bit of sleep and then woke up to watch the full card. And yeah, another great card. Definitely thankful to the UFC and all of the fighters for putting it on the line and going through all of the rigmarole that it takes to put an event together. Just in the lead up to this event, I'm watching the embedded and the different fighters' social networks and stuff, just seeing that they had to go through a lot, be it the quarantine, all the testing, um, very hot weather conditions out there in Abu Dhabi. So yeah, the fighters, all of them, whether they won, whether they lost, definitely hats off to them because they went through a lot to fight on Fight Island. And yeah, like I said, it was a historic thing, so I guess they deemed it to be worth it. Having just watched the event, I think the main event wasn't the most exciting, which is a little bit disappointing. You always like to finish off on a high with events, but it wasn't really the case with this one. Masvidal, he did look out of shape, man. I know he had somewhat of a camp, half a camp you could call it, leading up to this fight, but he certainly didn't seem to be in peak condition. As the fight wore on, he looked like he was just looking for a miracle shot. Whereas Kamaru Usman had a tactic and it was a very viable one. It's no real surprise what he was trying to do. He was trying to get Masvidal down and control him. And after the first round, which I thought you could definitely edge out to Masvidal, um, after that it was pretty much Usman all the way. He had it all his own way, and it didn't make for the most exciting spectacle. There was a lot of times he had him up against the cage and he was just stamping on his feet, and not a lot was really going on. The one thing I love about Masvidal is he tries to finish his opponents, which makes it very exciting. Um, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Usman would have loved to finish, but for the most part, it was just more about control, proving that he was in control and he was on top in the fight. And without doubt, a clean 4-1 decision for me. I saw them talking afterwards. Masvidal was saying, "Look, we'll run it back. We'll do it again. I'll get a couple of wins, and I'll be back in this number one contender sort of position," which I can believe. I can definitely believe that. I don't think he was fully prepared for this fight, so I think he could have done better. His timing could have been better. His cardio could have been better. His stamina could have been better. Um, but after watching that, it is hard to see any other outcome. If they do have a rematch, I think, like I said, Masvidal will be more dangerous. He will have better timing, better cardio, more of a chance of finishing Usman. But I think, unfortunately, the fight would have a similar outcome. I say unfortunately because I do prefer the striking style of MMA rather than the wrestling style, which can not be so pleasing on the eye at times. I do have an appreciation for it, but yeah, my personal preference, as I think is the case with a lot of people, is the strikers that really throw down and make for exciting fights in that regard. But again, no disrespect to Usman. He done exactly what he had to do. He was dominant. He's had three extremely good performances in a row in the Woodley, the Covington, and the Masvidal performance, showing different sides of him in order to win those fights as well. So he's going to be an extremely, extremely hard man to beat. I'm not sure who's going to be next, whether it's Edwards, whether it's Burns. I actually look forward to the Burns fight more out of those two because Usman's already beaten Edwards, and I do think he would do so again. I put him as a big favourite against Burns, but I do feel Burns has got that all-round game that would make it very interesting. And if they both got a full camp, I think that would be an interesting fight. I certainly favour Usman. I actually favour Usman to reign at the top of the welterweight division for quite some time. He seems like he's going to be extremely hard to beat. He's big and strong at that weight. His wrestling is extremely strong, and I think that's a real good base to have as an MMA fighter. In 2020, if you've got really strong wrestling, you're off to a good start, you know. And his striking is good. His striking's improved, so you know he hit Masvidal with a couple of good shots as well. Masvidal never really looked wobbled or looked like he was going to be finished, so I don't think he's lost a lot of stock, to be honest. I don't think his stock has gone down too far, really. He could still fight Nate. You know, they're both coming off a loss. I think that would still be a big blockbuster fight. Masvidal, I think, with not getting finished, with sticking in there, with Usman fighting a style that's not necessarily pleasing on the eye, I think people will still rally behind Masvidal with the fact that he came in on 6 days' notice, flew into Fight Island, made weight, lost 20 pounds in 6 days. So I still think people are going to rally behind Masvidal. I still think he'll have big fights ahead of him, and I do think he could have a couple of wins and come back and make a better effort of fighting Kamaru Usman. But I do think Usman would win again. I haven't seen much in that division, and it's a hot division, to say that Usman won't reign for quite some time. So fair play to him. He did what he had to do, got the win done, got what he had to do to get the win, and fair play. I think the controversial, you see my eyes, I'm pretty tired at this point. I think the controversial fight and decision for me in that main card was Max Holloway versus Alex Volkanovski. Now, I think Michael Bisping, who I'm a big fan of, I think he's a good commentator. I think he was really good at commentating as well this time. I think he made some adjustments. He made some adjustments from last time, where I think he might have been guilty of talking a little bit too much and not letting the action talk for itself, and letting John Lanik jump in, whereas I think they worked really well together. And I think that was a lot to do with the fact that it was just the two of them, whereas I think when Bisping was working with Dominic Cruz, I felt like, you know, they're both fighters, man. They both got egos, they're both competitive. I felt like at times they were competing to kind of get airtime, you know, which I think at times meant both of them spoke a bit too much and didn't let the action talk for itself. So big shout out to Michael Bisping this time. I think he was perfect in that. The action spoke for itself. It is self-explanatory a lot of the time as well, so I think that was really cool. But Michael Bisping clearly had the first 3 rounds to Max Holloway. I say clearly as in he let his opinion be known. That 3rd round was close. I think Holloway dropped Volkanovski in the 1st and 2nd, so I think those rounds were Max Holloway's, and he was looking very cool, calm and collected. The 3rd round, though, I did actually edge to Volkanovski. I think he stepped up his work rate massively. Max had the first half of the round, and Alex got the second half of the round, so it's an extremely tight round and hard round to score. And if you went with Holloway on that round, I'm not mad at that at all. I do believe 4 and 5 was quite clear to Volkanovski. He had the upper hand for me, more work rate. He was making the right adjustments, and Holloway, no, I wouldn't say he looked less collected, because throughout the fight he had a good, calm composure about him, but it certainly looked like the tide was changing within the fight. The momentum had changed. So I would just edge it out in the way that the judges did, 3-2 to Volkanovski myself, just waiting for the post-fight interviews and that. And a lot of people saying that Max was robbed. I know that word robbery gets thrown around a lot. I wouldn't say that was a robbery personally. I just edged it to Volkanovski. The narrative throughout the fight, I think, might have confused people, because as I said, Bisping was kind of leaning towards Max Holloway. It was very much the narrative at the beginning of the fight was them saying, look how great Max looks. Max is back. Max hasn't trained, so he's fresh, you know. And it was almost silence when it was a bit of a moment of silence when they announced Volkanovski, because that really went against the narrative that they had kind of been pushing throughout the fight as a commentating team. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say there was any malice in that. That's what they saw. They saw Max taking the first 3, and Volkanovski coming back into the fight, which they gave him credit for. But I actually do think the decision was right. I think it was 3-2 to Volkanovski, and he's beat Max twice. I think it's time for him to go and fight some contenders, and see how he gets on. Now, obviously, Josh Emmett is someone that's pushing for that fight, and I would certainly like to see that. I think that'd be an exciting, striking fight. So yeah, I think that would be a good one going forward. What happens with Max, I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? Because you've been at a high level, you've defended your title so many times, been eight title fights in a row. So what does he do now? I don't know. He's only 28, certainly way too young to be retiring, I would imagine. So hard to know where to put him now going forward. I guess he fights one of the top contenders and goes on from there. I think he kind of proved in the Dustin Poirier fight that 155 pounds is not going to be somewhere you can just jump up and have success in straight off of the bat. He might well grow into that division, but big 155 is like Dustin Poirier was certainly bigger and stronger, and would pose Max problems, I believe. So I think he'll stay at that weight. I think he'll regroup, maybe have some time off, and fight another contender, and good luck to him. I think I would like to see that fight again, maybe a couple fights down the line. I know it's 2-0 to Volkanovski, but they were close fights. So who's to say that Max is going to get another shot at Volkanovski after a few wins, after a couple of good wins? He's still a big name, and that's always going to help when you're trying to get title shots. Being a name, being a draw, being able to sell pay-per-views, being someone who has a fan base, that always helps, doesn't it? So good luck to Max. Is the blessed era over? I guess as a title reign, it certainly is, but I do feel like he's got many years ahead of him, and he could definitely come back and win the title again. Yan versus Aldo, really good fight. Really enjoyed this fight. Aldo was looking really great, man. In the first 3 rounds, I think Aldo was looking really good. Towards the end of that 3rd round, I think Yan started to put on the pressure, and he even said in his post-fight interview that the plan was to stay with him for the 3 rounds, and in the last couple championship rounds to really put the pressure on. And I think that is exactly what he did, and he made it count. It was brutal in the end, and I think the referee, my shout out to Michael Bisping, I think he kind of shamed the referee into stopping the fight, because he should have stopped that fight way earlier for me. Aldo is he's protected himself. He's like crawled in a ball like that, pretty much in the fetal position, both hands on his head. He's in a puddle of blood, literally a puddle of his own blood, getting smashed in the face. Absolutely no chance of winning that fight. He's exhausted, he's beaten. Bisping said it all himself at the time, and I think the ref could have stopped that 30 seconds, maybe even a minute earlier. There was no escape for him. He kept saying fight back, fight back. He's on the floor in the fetal position, getting battered. He's tired, he's finished. But he looked great for them first 3 rounds. He looked great. But for 5-round fights against these young up-and-coming killers, Aldo's going to struggle, I think, whether it's at that weight or higher up, And I think the reason he went down rather than up is 155. You've got Khabib and people there that are going to be extremely hard for him to compete with, let alone beat. So he went down, and you can't say it wasn't. He's lost his 2 fights officially since he went down in weight to 135, but he looked good in the Moraes fight, and he looked really good tonight for the first 3 rounds. So, and he got a title fight out of it. He got to fight on Fight Island for the title, and he gave a good account of himself. So, I don't know if you could say it's a failure, he's moved down to 135, but either way, I'm not sure what is the future for him. He's actually not as old as you think he is. I believe they said on the broadcast he's only 33, Jose Aldo, which is surprising just because he's been a stalwart of the MMA scene for so long. You kind of consider him older than that, but he's still got opportunities to come back in this sport and possibly move up again. Maybe take on Volkanovski. He's got lost to Volkanovski, hasn't he? So Yeah, it's early in the morning. Perhaps that wasn't the best idea, but I do still think he's got some good fights left in him, Aldo. But I think those 5 round championship fights against the young killers, I don't see him winning another one of those. You know, for 3 rounds, can he beat good contenders, some top people in 135 and 145? Yeah, I do think he could beat top 10, even top 5 guys, possibly in both those divisions still. But it's just up to him, you know. He's another one where you've been at those heights, you've reigned for so long. Do you want to go down and fight top 10 guys? I don't know. But listen, father, what do they say? Father time's undefeated, and it has kind of caught up with Aldo a little bit. I would say, which is completely understandable. But again, nonetheless, amazing performance from him. Just got outlasted, outdone. Jan had a lot left in the tank. He struggled with Aldo a little bit earlier on, but he had a lot left in the tank, and he just completely powered through him towards the end. And I think he could definitely have a good run as bantamweight champion as well. He's certainly got a lot of the skills that are needed to be a great MMA fighter. And I think he would have learned from tonight as well. I think fights like that, when you fight an old, wily veteran who's been through the game, been a champion for like 10 years, I think you can only learn from them sort of fights. So I think Jan's going to be in a great position going forward. And he's got some great contenders in that bantamweight division. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things pan out there. I'd like to see Aljamain Sterling get the next shot at Piotr Jan. And yeah, I think that would be a great fight. I favour Jan in that fight, but you know, Aljamain Sterling's on a good run of form, and I definitely think he's got a chance to upset the apple cart in that fight as well. Rose Namajunas versus Andrade. I think that kind of went how I thought it would. First couple of rounds, Namajunas just first to the punch, very slick. She's got great boxing, great head movement, just great slipping and counter punching skills. Towards the end though, I mean, Andrade made a real fight of it. She definitely won that last round. She hit Rose with some big shots. She busted open Rose's nose and gave her a nice big black eye as well, which made a nice, I mean, you want to see back and forth fights. You know, I like to see competitive fights, and it was certainly competitive in that 3rd round. She nicked that 3rd round definitely, but it wasn't enough. It was too little, too late. Rose Namajunas certainly got the first 2, and she is the better fighter. She's the more skilled fighter out of the 2. You know, certainly is. And yeah, so I'm just sitting on the toilet here. By the way, I'm not doing a shit. So I'm just chilling here in a little cottage out in Eastbourne. Actually, having watched the fights live on BT Sports. So I thought I'd do it in here so I don't wake up the family. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, don't think I'm currently shitting. I'm not. And then the first fight was obviously the last fight on the contract for Paige. Yeah, she got finished, didn't she? She got submitted in the 1st round. And yeah, Paige VanZant, UFC contract is now over. And to be honest, I don't see her being a UFC fighter for, I don't know, for you could say that could be her last fight in the UFC. If you told me that was her last fight in the UFC, I would not be surprised at all. The way she's been talking this week, and listen, it's up to, you know, fighters are completely well within their rights to talk about wanting more money and testing the free agency market. I'm not mad at that. You want to find out your value. UFC's telling you you're worth this much, and you're not allowed to listen to offers from other companies, other promotions. So you don't know whether or not that's accurate. Am I actually worth that? Or am I a bigger draw? Should I be getting paid more than that? So when I test my value in the free agency market, other companies get to offer me more, less, the same. Who knows? But you do get to find out your market value a little bit better by testing the market. So Paige VanZant talking this week a lot about how she could have made more money in a regular job than she has throughout the UFC in the last 6 years, and you know, saying that she'd made more money on Dancing with the Stars than she did in a UFC fight career for 6 years. So I think all of that stuff will lead to the fact that UFC won't be making the best offer going forward. I think you will see her fight for Bellator. I do believe her husband fights at Bellator, so I do think she'll go over there. She maybe a one championship, maybe their ONE FC will make an offer. I do think she'll be similar to like a Sage Northcutt. I think they both had the look. They're both attractive people that have that mainstream appeal. You know, sponsors and things of that nature. You know, people would invest them and get behind those two. But the UFC, they marketed them. They gave them that push. But when they put them in the octagon against real contenders and real killers, both of them came up short. Sage Northcutt and Paige VanZant. Again, I think there is a definite parallel there. You can compare the two. Again, both had the look. Both were touted to be great. Both well marketed by the UFC. Both had the sponsorships from Reebok and, you know, a number of things. You know, they both had the benefits of the marketing dollars that UFC have spent. But when it came down to it, when push came to shove, I don't think either of them proved that they were world-class fighters in the UFC. So I'm not really mad at the fact that they are now going elsewhere. I don't think it's a massive loss to lose Paige VanZant as a fighter to the UFC. Again, when she's gone up against big contenders in her division, hasn't really gone her way. She's never really made a real run at the title, and I think if she had done that, there would be no complaints about how much she's getting paid. If Paige VanZant had won a title, if she had really been the real deal in the octagon, she would be massive, because again, she has that appeal. She's a good-looking girl. She's certainly marketable. So if she had been winning the fights in style, you know, Ronda Rousey type fashion, or Amanda Nunes fashion, if she had been that dominant and then had that look and that marketability, she would be one of the biggest stars the UFC's ever seen, without a doubt to me. But she didn't win the fights. So good luck to her. Maybe she'll go away, maybe she'll get better. It's happened in the past where people have left the UFC, they've got some good wins in other organisations, and then they've come back to the UFC with a bit more leverage, a bit more confidence. They've come in and then they've had a successful run. So good luck to her. Hopefully she continues to fight and get better. But overall, I should say congratulations to Ribas. I think that was definitely a smart move for them, putting in Ribas. She was on the up. She's certainly she's a pretty girl as well. She's likable. Like, I'm not saying that your attractiveness should be the main factor, but look, the world that we live in, it certainly makes it easier to market a girl when she's attractive. I didn't make the rules. I think that's pretty undisputable, and has been shown in the past. So I think that win tonight will certainly help her on her rise, on her ascension within the UFC ranks. So yeah, congratulations to her. And yeah, just as a whole, another great event, you know, exciting from start to finish. I'm thankful to the UFC, Dana White, everyone there that's putting on these events. I'm currently not working, actually got sacked because of this pandemic. The whole department I was in actually got dissolved. So this time, the last 3 months, I've really had the time to sit and watch all of these fights and really enjoy what the UFC has been putting forth. So I'm very grateful to the fighters and everyone that's been involved in putting these events together. And yeah, Dan the Fan with my UFC 251 review, fresh, live after it's happened. And I'm going to go watch the post-fight interviews. So yeah.